Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. We have a special edition interview today with Amy Santee, who's going to be our May 2022 event. And she'll be speaking on a special, this is a really cool event about giving live feedback on resumes for user experience researchers. The way you get a ticket is you go on Eventbrite, you can scan this QR code, or you go on Eventbrite and get the ticket there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and start the conversation with Amy. So Amy, hello.
Hello, nice to see you.
You too. Thanks for coming. First question to you is tell me a little bit about who you are.
Absolutely. So yeah, my name is Amy Santee. My pronouns are she, her, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I'm a self-employed career strategist and coach, specifically for user experience professionals and folks who are looking to get into the field. So there's a couple of things that I help my clients with. One bucket of clients is folks who are working on general professional development goals. So promotions at work, navigating workplace challenges, building teams, leveling up skills, confidence, that sort of thing. So that's kind of where my coaching comes into play. The other group of folks that I work with are job seekers. And that's always a fun group of people to work with, just to go through that process of getting all of their professional materials in place, preparing for interviews, presentations, negotiation. And of course, there's a bit of coaching that comes into play there, where some of these fundamentals of values and confidence and all of that are, an important part of the interview process. Job search process. So yes, I love helping people work on their professional materials, presentations, websites, LinkedIn, cover letters, and of course, resumes. And so that's what I'm going to be doing for your event. And just a little bit more background information about myself. I worked as a UX researcher for about 10 years. In basically all kinds of companies, from large tech and product companies to startups. I was a self-employed consultant. I have worked, of course, in agencies, so I have a lot of different experience with different organizations, different types of products. And so, in 2020, in March 2020, right as the pandemic began, I decided to pivot into career coaching, just out of my passion for career development and helping other people meet their career development and job search goals.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I know I'm super excited to have you. I've been following you for years. So let's dive into some questions, if
All
we
right.
shall. Amy, what is the one thing that is a must have on a UX research resume?
This this is an interesting question, because I tried to pick something that there is controversy about, and not necessarily like controversy, but just different opinions, I suppose. This would be having a summary at the top of your resume. Some people just want to have their list of jobs and skills and that sort of thing, and that's totally fine. And some people like to put a summary. And if we think back to like 1995, we have this idea in our head of what a kind of professional statement or objective, like whatever you used to call it back in the day, using pretty, I don't know, cliche sort of terms like, results driven, like, 10-year proven track record of blah, 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 and it doesn't mean anything. So how do we turn that professional statement, that summary, into something that is actually meaningful? And the way I like to think about it is context setting. So how can you set context for how someone reads your resume? Again, someone could just start looking at your jobs, your skills, scanning for keywords, that sort of thing. But if you think about it, providing kind of a blurb, a little pitch at the beginning, can help them immediately get to know you as an individual and as a professional. And so this is something I actually really strongly recommend. Again, it's kind of like a mini pitch. So you could talk about, essentially you want to communicate what your special sauce is. This idea of like what differentiates you from others. So imagine there's a UX research job, there's a lot of applicants, there's going to be a lot of similarities across resumes, but how can you use this blurb to stand out from others? And so you might touch on things like your educational background, right? Maybe you studied a particular discipline like a social science. Maybe you're a designer turned researcher. And saying that right up front can really have an impact. Oh, this person has worked in UX design. They're going to bring that to the table as a researcher. And they could see that in your list of jobs and skills, but pointing that out right away can really kind of set the tone for how this person reads the resume. Let's imagine you used to, maybe you went to school for engineering and you're switching into research, like connecting the dots between these different places that you've been, different places that you've worked. You come from social work, whatever it might be. So what is that special sauce, that special point of view or perspective and set of tools that you bring to the table?
Oh, I love that. You're making me rethink my objective statement at the top of my resume. So, wow. Okay. All right. My next question for you, Amy, is how should someone think about the visual design of their resume?
That's a great question. People care a lot about making their resume appealing to the reader, whether it's a recruiter or a hiring manager, whoever it might be. And yes, of course, that's important, but what does that actually mean? You do not have to have this beautifully designed, perfect resume. At the same time, there are these kind of old-fashioned ways of doing resumes that, I don't know, we could up level essentially. And so it's finding that balance between the content and the visual design, the content being the most important aspect of it, right? But if we think about content, making that easy to consume and easy and quickly, to grasp by the reader is what's most important. Putting that together with the content, and that's kind of the key for that. So visual design, there's two things that come to mind for me. One is breathability, like, having some breathing room with your content, not cramming it all together, not using like 9-point font, like, come on now, and it's okay to go beyond one page, right? The longer you are in your career, the more you have to say. I could see a 2 or 3 page resume for someone who's been in the field for 20 years. If you've been in the field for 5 or 10 years, you might have enough of a reason to go onto a second page. If you're like brand spanking new, maybe 1 page works, right? That's just one aside here about dispelling a myth about, number of pages. So going back to this idea of visual design, and having breathing room, it's white space, right? Like the best, when we look on the internet, when we look on apps or even, printed materials, having breathing room between sections of content, headings, columns, whatever it might be, is what makes it easy for us to understand what we're reading or what we're skimming. There's another myth out there that's like, people, recruiters spend 6 seconds looking at your resume. You can't understand something in 6 seconds. That doesn't even make sense. But I think the point actually is that they have a lot of resumes to look through, and a human will always look at your resume. That's another mythology of like bots being like, nope, you're not qualified. So yes, they need to get through it quickly. But it's like, anyway, so how can you help them do that? Another part of this is information hierarchy. So if you think about information architecture, or making things appear in the correct order, and helping the reader understand, like, this is a job. This little section is a job with some activities and accomplishments. The next one, that's another job. Your statement at the top, like having these things stand out so the eye knows what it's looking at with, initially, without actually reading the content. So columns can help with that. This is what I think of when I think of visual design. And there's a lot of templates out there online. One place that people can go to is Canva. Canva has templates for a lot of stuff, but you can plop your stuff in there. It designs it for you. And then you kind of, just don't have to worry about it beyond that.
Great. Yeah, great advice. Thank you. So what I'm hearing you say maybe is you don't have to be a fancy visual designer to have a strong resume, a good looking resume.
Exactly. Think of what's most important, the content and, UX in your resume. So it's usable, it's readable. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Amy, one more question for you. And should people include a cover letter with their application?
This is another topic that has a wide variety of opinions. Some people think they shouldn't exist anymore. Cover letters come from back in the day when you had to mail your resume or fax it to an employer to apply for a job. And so, I don't, maybe some people watching this have never faxed anything, right? I think some of us have, you stick the paper in the machine. And if you think of like what comes out on the other side, it would just be a resume. But what's the context for this resume? Who is this person? What are they applying for? Yada, yada. So that cover letter was like an explanation of, hey, I'm applying for this. Here's a little bit more about me, why, I have a relevant background, that sort of thing. Or through the mail, same kind of thing. It's that context. So it does come from a previous era of applying for jobs, but I feel like it can still serve a purpose for, again, context setting. So you submit a resume, it goes in the system, people look at it, that's totally fine. If you're required to do a cover letter, it means that they want to know more about you. They want that human dimension to your resume, because your resume isn't a human thing, right? You have the little blurb at the top, you have a list of your jobs and your skills and all of that. But cover letters really can add a human dimension to your application. So if it is not required, I think it's totally fine. You don't need to submit one. Obviously, if it's required, you need to submit one, but you need to make it really, really good. Like, don't do templates, don't say the same thing for each role. And this actually goes to the point of like, don't apply for hundreds of jobs either, because you can't write hundreds of quality cover letters if that's required. And so being very selective in your job search is going to narrow your scope. And if you have to write a cover letter, you're going to have a lot of good information to put into it that really connects you to the job, your skills, your interests, your background, that sort of thing. So if it's required, yes, definitely do it. If you don't, then you did not do the application correctly. The other thought I have on this is, if it's not required, consider writing one anyway, because you have nothing to lose. It might take you an hour to write it. If this job is something that you really want, it's just like right up your alley, you'd be a great candidate. Why not write one? So that's kind of my thoughts on the role of cover letters in job applications.
Oh, wow. Great stuff. I am so super excited about all that you have shared. This is really, really great. I'm going to just share the information again for those who are interested, who haven't got their ticket yet, because you're crazy. You got to get a ticket to this. You can, if you have your mobile handy, scan the QR code, or go on Eventbrite, look up UX Research and Strategy. And her event is Thursday, May 26th at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And wow, I am impressed, because so much great information in just this little session. So this event's going to be awesome. So thank you so much again, Amy, for having a little taste, a little sneak peek of what's to come later on in the month.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, thanks so much.